Good morning and welcome to the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 3rd of July 2024. I'm Councillor Ian Massey and I'm the convener of this committee. I'll now introduce you to the top table. On my far left is Councillor Grant Stewart, my vice convener, Miss Jessica Gill, Democratic Governance Officer, and Mr Colin Elliott, Solicitor. On my right is Mr Christian Smith, Development Management and Building Standards Service Manager, and Mr Sean Panton, Team Leader, Major Developments. Housekeeping: as this is a hybrid meeting, members joining virtually are reminded that if you leave the meeting during consideration of any application, you are unable to participate or vote on that item when you return to the meeting. This also means that if a member loses their internet connection during consideration of an item, they should not vote on that item. Please advise the clerk via the meeting chat that you are leaving the meeting or you have lost your connection and are therefore unable to vote. And whilst we are operating as a hybrid meeting for the proceedings today, can I remind councillors and officers to use the chat box to attract my attention, which all members should have access to. Q for questions, C for comment. I now ask the clerk to confirm any apologies and the attendance of those in the chamber and online. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. We have apologies today from Councillor Cuthbert with Bailey Brock substituting, Councillor Leishman with Bailey substituting, Councillor Illingworth with Bailey Ahern substituting, and Councillor Reid with Councillor Forbes substituting. We have some members online. I'll ask them to confirm they're present, please. Bailey.
Present, good morning.
Bailey Brock.
Present.
Councillor Forbes.
Good morning, I'm here.
Councillor James.
Morning, Jess, online.
And Bailey McLaren.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you. All other members are in the chambers, convener.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any of the committee have any declarations of interest? Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, good morning, convener. I'm looking at the item relating to Invergowrie and the James Hutton Institute, and in the past I've welcomed the principal publicly of this development. I'm not really familiar with what the specifics are here. Do I need to declare an interest for that, given that I have publicly been enthusiastic about the whole development at James Hutton Institute?
I believe you don't, but I'll ask Mr Elliott for confirmation.
Thank you. It really depends on the level in which you've supported this, because if you were in committee when it was originally granted, that would not be a reason to exclude yourself. But if you have been publicly supporting this in public meetings, for example, then I think you would have to think about it. This is not about the principle, of course. This is about the details and the signalised junction. I find it hard to fully advise you, Councillor Forbes, because you know how you've supported it. And you would then, the context of the particular application. So, but if you have any doubt in your mind, the safest thing would be to declare an interest.
Okay, I'll declare an interest. I won't take any part in that discussion. Do I need to physically leave the meeting, or am I okay just to sit in the background and not say anything?
You will have to leave the meeting.
Okay, assume someone will call me back in when that item's over, convener.
Yes, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further declarations of interest? None at all. Right, item 3, the minutes. Can we agree the minutes of the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 5th of June 2024? Thank you. Deputations. Can I ask the committee if they agree to hear deputations on item 511, 512, 513 and 521? Thank you. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the deputations and members of the public watching today. Your request to speak has been granted. You will be called to the lectern as we reach the relevant item on the agenda and be invited to make your deputation by the vice convener, followed by a period of time for questions from members. It is requested that the content of your deputation is kept relevant to the planning considerations in relation to the item of business being discussed. Please also ensure that when answering questions, your response remains relevant and direct to the questions asked. Now we'll move on to item 5, application for determination. The first item is a major application. This is for the mixed-use development comprising of golf course, golf driving range, Class 11 with cafe, Class 3, retail unit, Class 1A, formation of vehicle access and parking, landscaping and associated works at land 240 metres north of East Angie wastewater treatment works in Kinross. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, councillors. As stated, the first item on the agenda today is for the erection of a golf driving range just outside Milnathort. We are recommending refusal today due to the site being prime agricultural land and the potential impacts upon the existing cafe and retail offering in Kinross and Milnathort. I will now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Before doing so, members should note the circulated update which confirms the removal of the objection from SEPA and thus the deletion of reason 3 for refusal. Here we can see the location of the site. The site is to the southeast of Milnathort, to the immediate north of the C495 and measures approximately 9.9 hectares. The site is currently in agricultural use and is located within the Loch Leven and Lomond Hills local landscape area and the Loch Leven special protection area. Next slide, please. We now have the proposed site plan. The main access will be obtained from the C495 to the south of the site, where the parking area will also be contained. The main building is located to the southwest corner of the site, and to the west you can see the pitching and putting greens. You can also make out, in yellow, the footpath connections to the adjacent core path network. Next slide, please. This plan shows the proposed elevations. The driving range itself will have 19 bays with an associated 40 cover cafe and 33 square metre retail offering. The building will be finished in a combination of natural stone and vertical timber cladding with a leaf green standing seam metal roof. Next slide, please. We now have an aerial view of the site where you can see the general arrangement proposed. Note that the complex to the immediate west of the site is the existing Milnathort wastewater treatment plant. Next slide, please. We now have an artist's impression of the golf range building itself when viewed from the south. Next slide. This view now shows the building when viewed from the north. Here you can make out the arrangement of the 19 golf bays. Next slide, please. This next artist's impression shows the building when viewed from the west and the southwest. Next slide, please. This image shows the complex when viewed from the northwest. The top image shows pre-development and the bottom image shows post-development. Next slide, please. Again, the top image here is pre-development and the bottom image is post-development, this time taken from the west. Next slide, please. This final artist's impression shows the same again, this time viewed from the south. I will now take members through a series of photographs from my site visit with the case officer. This first image shows the site when viewed from the C495. The access road to the left is the existing access point to the Milnathort wastewater treatment works. Next image, please. This next photograph shows the site looking back towards Loch Leven. Next image, please. This penultimate photograph shows the site when looking in an eastern direction. Next image, please. This final photograph shows the site and the adjacent core path network. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the proposed site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Panton. We do have deputations on this, so I invite the Vice Convener to handle the deputations procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Can I call on Mr. Marchbank, agent, and Mr. Montgomery on behalf of the applicant? Good morning, gentlemen. You're aware that you have 10 minutes between you. I'll give you a prompt after 9 minutes, and you can start your deputation when you feel comfortable.
Okay, so good morning, Convener and all members. My name's Hugh Marchbank. I'm a senior planner at Cundall, the agent representing Burley Golf Limited, the applicant for the application. Today you'll be deciding on whether or not to permit over £3 million of investment in the new mixed-use leisure facility for the Milnathort and Kinross community. Firstly, it's important to address that the SEPA holding objection has recently been removed by SEPA as a result of the relevant information having been submitted to their satisfaction, as discussed in the previous deputation. Rather than focusing on the reasons for refusal, we would first like to emphasise the sustainable benefits of the development, which reduce the need to travel for leisure opportunities in compliance with MPF 4 Policy 13. Contribute to the provision of blue-green infrastructure, Policy 20, provide high-quality play and sport infrastructure, Policy 21, as well as enhance rural development, Policy 29, and inbound tourism, Policy 30. The current LDP is out of date and does not reflect the MPF 4, which is more positive about this type of sustainable leisure development. The development plan must be considered as a whole and not to be used as a checkbox exercise. I'll now pass over to Jamie, and then I'll be here at the end to answer any policy questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for having us. My name's Jamie Montgomery. I'm the owner of this field and the person behind the Burley Golf Centre proposal. You will appreciate perhaps that I was more than a little disappointed last week to discover that our application was going to be recommended for refusal. We worked mighty hard to, I think, satisfy 98% of the requests for information and the requirements that were made. And I was particularly chuffed to get an exemplar for our biodiversity report. But I was frustrated by the two grounds for refusal, one of which I think is distinctly arguable, and the other one is, as the report actually admits, somewhat arbitrary. And I think it ignores the overwhelming support that we've had for this project. And I also felt it was disappointing to see how little effort appeared to be in the handling report to look at to highlight the social and economic benefits. Most of the report was dealing with the two reasons for refusal. With so many new houses, so many new families moving into Kinross in recent years, I had expected and thought that this sort of project would be welcomed with open arms. There's considerable economic benefits, as Hugh said, for the investment that's coming in here and that it will bring to the local economy. Although primarily it will likely be used by locals, it's also worth saying that there's 275,000 people within a half-an-hour drive of this facility. And it's likely that some of those will come. We certainly in Kinross at the moment find people going into Fife to Kirkcaldy to even St Andrews to practice golf. And so we would expect perhaps the other way around when we have it on our own doorstep to attract people in from Dunfermline and the like into us. And that can only help increase the footfall into Kinross and Milner Thorpe. And we have 4 local clubs that would definitely benefit from the increased participation in golf that this range is likely to get with the beginners. From a social benefits point of view, it ticks all sorts of health and wellness boxes. It's a much needed new state-of-the-art it would be a much needed state-of-the-art recreational facility in the area where, despite all the new the growth in population, there hasn't really, to my knowledge, been any increase in facilities in recent years. And our business plan emphasises children with coaching and development, and also build on the growing number of ladies and girls coming now into golf. And we think that local clubs will benefit from more potential members, and in particularly the most local one, which is Milner Thorpe, which has its problems at the moment with lack of members, and it's going to be the immediate beneficiary. The two issues for refusal I'm afraid, are frustrating. The first one, as Mr. Panton said, was the prime agricultural land. There's a conflicting, as the report actually shows, there's conflicting evidence here. First of all, we were all working from a James Hutton Institute report, which classed it as grade 3.2. And then they came across belatedly a more high resolution one, which suggested it might be 3.1 or grade 1. It's not prime land, I can tell you that. We've submitted cropping history, which basically suggests that the yield we're getting from that field at the moment is about 2 tonnes per acre for winter wheat and spring barley. Now, Robin Niven, who does the contract farming for us, will tell me that, submitted a letter that said that he gets 2.6, so 2.6 tonnes per acre from higher quality land further around the loch to the east. So the 2 tons, he says, is firmly grade 2, and that seems to be backed up also by the fact that when I sold the 2 fields, the field immediately to the east and the one to the northeast, that was classed then at the time of sale as grade 2 land. Believe me, I would have loved to have got the premium that grade 1 would have got, but it was never going to be. And also, just to put it into perspective, we're talking here about 9.9 hectares. It's about 20 acres of croppable land, 2 tons per acre. That's 40 tons of either barley or wheat a year, with a market value at the moment of about between £5,000 and £10,000. And I find it difficult to see how the loss of 40 tons is going to affect the food production, food security of Perthshire or Scotland. If it is, we're in a worse predicament than I thought this country was in. The main reason, I think, though, for the refusal was this the assertion in the report that the cafe and the retail might be a threat to the local town centre. Retail is not a threat. The only retail here is going to be golf equipment, clothing and accessories, and there's nowhere else in Kinross and Milnathorpe that sells that. There's no one we're threatening there. The only place is the golf shop at Kinross, and that's run by the person who's going to be running the shop here. The report states that a 40 cover cafe would be a threat to Milnathorpe and Kinross town centres. I think that is more imagined than actual. I think I quoted in my submission that it was like Don Quixote tilting at windmills there. Kinross has a population of 6,000, currently has 3 cafes, all towards the southern end of Kinross. The fourth one's actually closed down or changed into a gift shop. And Milnathorpe has 1 cafe for a population of 2,000. So we basically have 1 cafe for every 2,000 people in Kinross and Milnathorpe. That's probably 1 seat for every 60 or 70 people. So we're not exactly over-provided. You've probably got more in a side street here in Perth. But the report mainly ignores the elephant in the room. If you recall, 2 years ago, PKC gave a grant of 855,000 for us to build a big new wonderful car park down at the Loch in Kinross, with a view to strengthening the town centre. Now, the missing piece of that particular puzzle has been the Boathouse restaurant, which has been closed since before COVID. But almost exactly a year ago, this committee approved a planning application for a refurbishment of that Boathouse committee. And if you look at the well, I'm sure you remember, but I looked at the plans and talked to the individual, and it has covers of 193 covers alone there. Now, the report emphasises that our 40 cover cafe would be a threat to the current 120 odd covers in Kinross and Milnathorpe. Well, suddenly, as of next year, it's going to be 300 down in the town centre of Kinross. So if you ally that to the fact that Lochleven's Larder on our other side to the east has about 250, and it really puts into perspective, actually, are we really thinking that 40 extra covers is going to make a threat to the local businesses? I would contend not, but that's obviously my opinion. The Golf Range Cafe is actually aimed at a completely different market to those that are going to the town centres and to the Lochleven's Larder. They're going for a coffee and something to eat. The golf range is aiming at two markets. One are the people using the golf range, and secondly, the Lochleven Heritage Trail, those who are visiting Burley Sands and the Lochleven Heritage Trail. Now, the Lochleven Heritage Trail, if anyone knows Kinross, is probably the best thing that's happened to the area for generations. Tracks estimated in its report last year that over 300,000 daily visits to the Heritage Trail every year. And Burley Sands, which is just to the bottom right-hand corner of that site there, is the place where between a quarter and a fifth of all people joining or leaving the Heritage Trail actually do so at Burley Sands. There are currently no facilities at all at Burley Sands. The nearest refreshments and toilet facilities are 2 miles in either direction. Lochleven's Larder to the east, and to the south, the newly refurbished boathouse will be there. And people have long come to me and said, why have we not got more? Why have we not got facilities? And suddenly this Burley Golf Centre seemed to be the ideal opportunity to kill two birds. Sorry.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are you willing to stay and take questions from members if there's any? Please give us a moment while we populate the chat function. Bailey McLaren.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, just wonder if you could just clarify with me there the grade of land, because I know you're maybe looking at as prime agriculture as of a grade 1. In terms of planning, it goes, we're classing prime down to 3-2 grading of land. And you mentioned that it's not you who is directly cultivating the ground. It's on a contract farming agreement. Am I correct in understanding that as well?
Yes, that's absolutely true. We have Robin Nibbon of Channel Farm,
Yeah.
which is Loughlean's larder. They do the contract farming for us and have done for the last few years. And as I say, he regards it as grade 2 land. I wasn't aware. I'm not fully au fait with the James Hutton gradings, but if you class that as prime land, then I'll have to hold my hand up and say it's prime land. But it's certainly not top quality.
Right. Okay. So you think it's in the grade 2 range, not into the 3?
Sorry, just to clarify, I think 3.2 is the soil classification that we're referring to here. So 0.2 versus 0.1, which is considered prime.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I understand it better now. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Bailey McLaren kind of covered off my question, so I'll ask a different one. Can you just tell me about the cafe? You mentioned the numbers of covers that would be reflected and the numbers of covers that would be at risk in Kinross and elsewhere. Is the cafe going to be a snack bar? Is it going to be a full sit-down restaurant? Can you just explain that, please? Thank you.
It was going to be it was going to be basically a snack bar, but with some limited hot foods, whether it's burgers or whatever, being produced by the kitchen. So it's not a fully fledged restaurant at all. It's just a yes, it's a jumped up snack bar, but offering a wide range of tray bakes and everything else, as well as some cooked food options.
Councillor Brown, I'll take your first question unless they're related.
Thanks for asking me, and thank you for your deputation. You mentioned there's other courses around the site, golf courses. Do they not have any driving ranges of their own?
No, one of the reasons why this whole thing came up was because Kinross, which has 2 golf courses, lost last year its practice ground. So it has no practice facilities at all with 800 and something odd members. Milner Thorpe has a small dry practice area, as does Muckett, and I don't think Bishopshire does at all. So the answer is no, nothing like this.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and thank you for your deputations. Just in relation to golf and tourism within Kinross area, can I just ask you how important is golf from a tourist perspective within Kinross, and how do you feel this development, if we're minded to pass it, would benefit that tourism part of what Kinross and the wider area can offer? Thank you.
I think it's very important. I mean, Kinross, obviously the major aspect, the major attraction of Kinross is Lochleven and the National Nature Reserve. But in terms of tourism, by far and away, the second would be golf. The hotels and the bars and everyone else benefit hugely from the number of resident golfers, people coming to the area from the west coast of Scotland, the north of England, and abroad. So golf is definitely there and is definitely very important. But we haven't got the sort of facilities that like this is going to offer in order to really make Kinross a destination. It ought to be, because of its location. It's so handily sited within the home of golf, within Fife Perthshire area, which is regarded as the home of golf, that we ought to be seen as being a key base from which people can play either locally or further afield. But we need to have these sort of facilities there to actually attract golfers from far afield.
Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Following up from Councillor Allen's question, the nature of the restaurant, will the restaurant be or the cafe be licensed?
We haven't gone down that route yet. I think the answer is yes, we will apply for that, because I think the one thing that has changed in these in golf ranges, whereas in the past there used to be covered areas on golf practice grounds where you just hit golf balls. Now, and I don't think the report picks this up, there's been a huge change in the social side of golf ranges. So it's become much more of a social outing now. So people are not just coming along on their own to hit golf balls, they're coming along with family and friends. And the technology lends itself to that. So you can have 4 people in a bay playing alternate shots and playing the old course or playing Pebble Beach or wherever. And I think at that side, yes, I mean, you would expect those 4 golfers to probably have a pint on the ledge at the side while they're doing that and having enjoyment. So the answer is yes. Obviously, we'd have to go through the licensing board to check whether they would be happy with that, but that would certainly be our intention.
Bailey Ahern.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I'm going to slightly adjust my question based on the previous question. My question originally was going to be the fact that you're is open between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. and my question then was, is the cafe going to be open between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m.? Now that we're seeing that you may apply for a license, are there going to be occasions when you're going to apply to open beyond the 9 p.m. for private functions?
On the first question there, we actually submitted a follow-up. I did a 9-page cafe proposal when Mr. Panton's team questioned the 40 covers. I did a 9-page one, which unfortunately doesn't seem to have been reflected in the report, but such is life. What we did say, though, there was that the opening hours for the cafe would not be the entire, it will open late and close early, most likely. So it will probably only open at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning rather than at 9 o'clock and probably close at 8. In terms of the late license, I think that's highly unusual. I don't think no is the answer. I do not have any vision at the moment of asking for an extended, a late closing for parties or anything else. We don't know, once this is up and operational, we will learn how the thing runs and what the demand is. But at the moment, no, I do not see the cafe and the bar operating much beyond 8 o'clock at night if there's a 9 o'clock closing.
Councillor Braun, your second question.
Thanks, Vice Convener. I'm coming back to the reason for refusal here. It's to do with the prime agricultural land, which contravenes our policy, Policy 50, and NPF4, Policy 5. The only exception, as I read it, is if there's something that's actually needed, a reason why this infrastructure is there. And my question really is, this land produces food. I know you mentioned, we say it's 3.1, you think it might be 3.2. I know you said it's only 40 acres and it produces two tons as opposed to 2.6. But we're living in a time when we're looking at food security for the country as a whole. I'm trying to find out what the justification is to take this land away from food production, or it could be production of biofuel, because this is another factor which farmers are growing now, as you know, rapeseed oil and whatever for vegetable oil for production of fuel for vehicles. So I'm trying to find out what is the reason why we should lose that land. And I appreciate you're talking about the social need for driving range or whatever, but that's not what I'm trying to find. We know that's there, but what is the justification for losing that land which produces food of some sort? Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I had pushed it, sorry. The answer to that, and I think it's what we put in one of our follow-up submissions to the planning team, and that is that with a yield of 2 tonnes an acre, that is deemed, and it was written in writing from Robin Niven, that makes that particular field highly marginal. We're making virtually nothing out of it. And once you've put in the labour and you put in the fertiliser and you put in all the work and everything else, that sort of yield is strictly marginal. If I tell you that this year, if you were to go down and have a look at it, there's probably 20% of that field not cropped at all. It's currently in set-aside. as not being worth cropping at all. So it is a very marginal field. And in terms of, from a farmer's point of view, we can be busy fools. They can be busy fools. You can produce 40 tons of grain, but if you're not making any money out of it, that's not a sustainable model, I would say. So
I'll just add to that as well. So in policy terms, I understand that there are sort of certain exceptions for sort of small scale developments that are also support of rural business. Now, it's through the report of handling that it's stated that it's not deemed a small scale development given the size of the land. But when you look at the actual building itself, we consider it to be relatively small. It's only 2%, say, of the entire overall area. And in terms of it being a rural business, it can be considered as such. And a lot of the policy to states that it is in support of a rural business. So in sort of policy terms there, we think that point is sort of arguable at least. So yeah.
Councillor Allen. Sorry, please.
I'm not a farmer, so you're talking figures which I understand them, but not within a very limited scope. You're talking about obviously food crop when you were talking just now, but the land could produce rapeseed oil or whatever for biofuel, which would make it more practical probably. And that again, that's part of the security of the country to be able to produce this this substance.
What crop goes in there is largely down to the farmer, and where he getting his crystal ball out, thinks he's going to get the best prices and the best yield from the following year. We have had rape oil down there in the past. It's not at the moment. It's not well, I don't know what. I'm not a farmer hugely myself either, but I take, we have had and we do have oilseed rape elsewhere, but this particular field hasn't had oilseed rape for probably 8 years.
Sorry, just one more point I just thought I'd mention is that we also don't consider that this is a highly impactful development on the wider topsoil across the site. Obviously, there's small areas, including the building footprint itself, and any areas of, say, meadow that but that we don't consider that the large proportion of the site for use as a driving range is impactful to that top layer of soil if it were in time to be returned to an agricultural use.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener. It's basically just moving on from the conversation and the comments that you've made. If today you're refused the application, I understand you'll go away disappointed, but what's the longer term plans for that particular field?
First thing is probably to appeal. I mean, at the moment that field, if it doesn't, we will continue muddling along with it in arable crops. There's nothing else we can really use for that, or put it into set aside if we need to. I mean, for example, this year we're using a set aside because every farmer has to have a certain percentage of his land not in crops, and that is our least marginal field, most marginal field, and therefore that's why 20% of it's currently not cropped. But the answer is it would just continue as it is. We've got no other plans for it.
Councillor Harvey, your second question.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Sorry, I meant to ask earlier. So if this application is accepted and everything opens as described, including the cafe, how many jobs, both permanent and full-time, would you expect to be created?
We estimated in our business plan, I think, Mr. Panton, you'll correct me, but I think it was it's about 15.7 or 16 full-time equivalent jobs. Obviously, there's rather more people than that because quite a lot of those would be part-time. But that's the FTEs would be about 15, 16.
Gentlemen, there appears to be no further questions, so you're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations, so I'll hand back to yourself.
Again, thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Councillor James.
Surprise, Convener? Thank you very much. I have several issues on this, if I'm honest, and I'm finding it very, very difficult at a planning committee at the moment, because a lot of our decisions are being appealed, sent away to the recorder and being overturned. And I fear local democracy is waning. However, with this particular application, sorry, I couldn't think of the word then, Mr. Montgomery has just specified.
Councillor James, could I come in and that you need to frame a question there? I think you're at risk of expressing your opinion at the moment.
I'm just going that way, Mr. Elliott. Thank you. Mr. Montgomery has expressed his need to diversify the land, which when farms are being asked to diversify to make the farm profitable, why is the land, which isn't a grade 1 prime agriculture, for a small reason, being used as a reason to or refuse this application? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor James. So the land is classed as 3.1, which under our definition is prime agricultural land. So 3.1 is prime agricultural land. So because of that, that's why we've got reason 1 for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thanks, convener. On reflection, I'm going to withdraw my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, convener. I wasn't quite ready. Just a kind of general question. One of the reasons for refusal was the additional amount of covers in the restaurant. There was a bit of discussion at 40 initially, then it went down to 20. Taking this site into account, is there any number that would be acceptable in a development such as this at all?
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. So yes, we had suggested 20 covers may be appropriate. Our concern with the 40 covers is we believe that that wouldn't be ancillary to the driving use range. We thought that would be a standalone cafe, if you like, whereas a number such as 20 would make it more ancillary to the use. So there could be a compromise on a smaller number. However, we posed that with the applicant and they wanted to proceed with the 40 cover basis, and their argument for that was down to the viability of the business. 20 covers wouldn't have been appropriate for them to proceed.
Just a follow up then. So
sorry, I was just going to clarify there. I think to clarify, what we were saying is, if the driving range in itself was acceptable in principle, which we're saying it's not, that a level of 20 units would be something that could be seen as ancillary. What we were not saying is that a 20 cover cafe was acceptable in principle. So it's really a bit of semantics there. It's about, look, the scale of cafe exceeds what we would consider would be reasonable to see as an ancillary element to a driving range. Okay,
so just a wee quick follow up. So if it got planning permission for outside the reasons, 20 would be a more likely cafe number to be acceptable, then yes.
Yeah, if the principle of the driving range was acceptable with the number of bays, etc., the patronage that was likely to have, then it would be more likely to see the level of custom associated to 20 covers than 40, which we felt was excessive in terms of the use of the driving range.
Councillor Waters.
Thank you, convener. Just trying to understand one of the policies, and following on from Ken's question there, in relation to the amount it covers, some of the investigation, or where it's getting compared to, is Kinross town centre and Milnathort town centre, but where you have an area that is clearly a big tourist area, and I think Mr. Montgomery mentioned the amount of people who walk the Heritage Trail, or you have a tourist element, You have Lochleven and Larder, which I thought was about 200, but I think Mr. Montgomery said 250 covers. You have numerous other, you know, whether it's, you know, the Well Inn, whether it's Loch End Farm, Findity, RSPB, Fane Farm, all have quite a large amount of covers. So the amount of covers around the loch in a tourist area, how does the policy interpret where you're looking at an area where you know there's where tourism plays an important part in the economy, and yet all we're doing is looking at the town centre and not doing a more holistic approach to look at the whole tourist area and what benefits within the application could be brought to the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. I think there's two parts to that. One, there are areas that are identified as protected centres, town centres, other allocated centres, etc. And they are, as you will have seen from NPF4 and certainly long-standing planning policy, the areas where new development should be focused if at all possible. So we are seeking to protect them and the limited number of patronage that there is in the world today. The second element that you're talking about are by and large, from my understanding, diversification of existing rural businesses where there was a focal point associated to that. So Lochleven Larder, for example, was an expansion of the existing built form that was there, and that has developed over a long period of time. What we're looking at here is an existing portion of field detached from the existing centres of Milnathort and Kinross, adjacent to Lochleven. There is no development there as such. Yes, it's part of an existing farm, but it's an open field, not the same scenario as many of the things that you pointed out, where there were focal points in existing businesses or aspects which could be diversified to provide additional offer associated to those particular nodes at those points.
And just a quick supplementary, convener, just in relation to the tourism, the general tourism that I think NPF4 policy 30 kind of covers a bit, but just in relation to the general tourism, is there anything, or what was the consideration giving in from that perspective in relation to the Lochleven area?
I think, as you pointed out, in relation to non-designated centre facilities, there are multiple in and around Lochleven already, and in addition there are facilities within both Kinross and Milnathort that are the primary focus for supporting their future economic viability.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes.
Thanks, Convener. It seems to me that there's a disagreement between the applicant and the planners over the grade of the land. Can someone maybe explain to me, is there a benchmark process? Is there something that we can look at and say it's definitely this grade or it's definitely another grade?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Councillor. I think maybe getting some clarification. So Scotland Soils is the benchmark, I think, as you put it, and in relation to that, when you drill down to this piece of land, they identify it as class 3.1, which is well, I'll maybe go back a step. There are a number of classes associated to soils across Scotland. It goes from class 1, class 2, class 3.1, all of which are identified as prime soils. It then moves to class 3.2, 4.1, 4.2, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. So out of all those lists, this is the lowest grade of prime soil, but land that's capable of producing consistently high yields of a narrow range of crops and or moderate yields of a wider range, and short grass leys are common within that. But that Scotland Soils, which is the benchmark that we would refer to and is accepted in planning policy terms across the country, is classifying this land as prime class 3.1.
I have a follow-up on that, Convener. So if they seem to be from the point of view of the applicant, they're just on the wrong side of a very narrow line. If they were on the other side of the line, would you be recommending it for approval?
No, I think again, if you look at the detail of the policy, it's not a line that you fall one side or the other, but other lands where there is a good quality soil that can be used for production, it should be considered carefully as to whether or not that should be redeveloped.
Thank you.
I think maybe your questions were the way in which the deputations were classifying the soil was related to their experience of how they have farmed the land and the yields that they were achieving. But whether those yields of 40 tonnes or 46 tonnes, or I can't remember the number, sorry, strike that from the minute, may or may not be high yields.
Thank you. Yeah, convener's allowed me to come in. Sorry, members. Just to be as clear and as simple as possible, the assessment of whether it's prime agricultural land or not, you look at what is classed under a particular James Hutton Institute, isn't it? It is classed as prime agricultural land. If the farmer or owner believes it's not, and perhaps for their own reasons, they should look for a reclassification through the James Hutton Institute. It's not for members to reclassify today. So therefore, that gives you the context of what you're looking at here. It is classed as prime agricultural land. You're then looking at the policies and whether it falls under the exceptions. And of course, officers are saying it does not fall under the exceptions allowed within the policy for development. So that's the context you're looking at. You're making your mind up in that context.
Thank you for that, Mr. Eilert. Where are we next? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, convener. Just not something that's covered a lot because the recommendation is refusal, but just from a light pollution perspective, can I just get an update of officers that if we were minded to pass this, whether they would be happy that any light pollution elements that may affect some of the residents up in the Burley area would be mitigated. Thank you.
Lynn, can you take that one?
Yep, there was a light assessment carried out and conditions were set with regards to the environmental area. So there would be conditions if it was approved to protect the residential amenity from light pollution.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. I have to apologise. I'm really struggling with this. This is going to be a driving range, which kind of tells me there will be minor development, but the most of that piece of ground will be allowed to be grass or whatever it's going to be. So it's actually minor development, and the ground could be returned to agricultural use should the venture fail, for instance. Is there a relevance in there that is still going to be available as agricultural land?
Thank you, Councillor Allen. No, I think that the principle here is that we should not be developing this land unless it is absolutely necessary. So the fact that it may be returned is not a factor that we should be considering. The fact is, should we be approving this application in the first place? And the recommendation is that we should not.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson.
Excuse me. Thank you, convener. Given the advice that Colin Elliott has just given us about the reclassification of prime agricultural land, has the developer tried to have that ground reclassified, or has he been advised to explore the possibility of having that ground reclassified?
The developer I'm reading here there has been no direct soil sampling and analysis had been undertaken. I think you want to come on. There seems to be no further questions. Can I ask for a motion, Councillor Waters?
Thank you, convener. I was ready to go there, but I did wait till you asked. I would like to put a motion to go against the recommendation for refusals and approve this. And Mr. Elliott, if you could assist me, please, with the justification. I understand that the land classification we won't planning law is planning law, but in relation to employment and the economic and diversification of business within the area, NPF policy 29. I think this does fit the criteria within there, and I think especially with the tourism side, and which NPF policy 30, I think it also does in there, and the benefit to Kinross and from that perspective that this will bring, I think is justifies the diversion from the other policies. As part of that, and I'm happy just to cover that first, but as part of the motion, I would like to ensure that appropriate conditions would be put in place for all the consultees, so the light pollution and any other of the consultees that have come in. I would also like a condition on the core path side, because I think if this went ahead, this was absolutely essential that it enhances the heritage trail around the loch with the facilities that have been mentioned by the applicant that will benefit that. I would like, and my view is 40 covers compared to the amount around the loch is minimalistic and within the town centres, but I do accept the officers that needs to be restricted, but I would like to make sure there's a condition that it does get restricted at 40 within that. The landscaping around the field has to enhance the environment and the wildflower element as well. So I'd like conditions in there to ensure that that's done. I don't know whether there's a condition that ensures it for the lifetime of the project, type thing when it's going, but that's thing. I think that's my conditions, unless officers have anything that feel that would sit in that that needs to be added to that. I would be happily added to it, and I do hope somebody will second this to give the opportunity there. Thank you, Councillor James.
Thank you, Convener. I normally come in towards the end once there's any amendment dealt with, etc. But Councillor Waters is asking for clarification. The absolute strategic element is you're assessing any application against the development plan unless there are other material considerations that indicate otherwise. I'm going to direct you to the reasons for refusal. Of course, the recommended reasons for refusal, I should say. The third one is out because SEPA are no longer objecting. Now, in terms of ground of refusal number one, we've heard already it is prime agricultural land. It's not falling under the exceptions. What I've heard you to say, Councillor Waters, is you feel that for employment, economic benefit and tourism reasons, you would consider that would be granted. Now, to be clear, because it's contrary to the agricultural land policies, what you're saying is you think there's justification to go against those policies. That's what you would be doing. The other part, and I want clarification, it would be helpful to clarification from you, the other ground of refusal in relation to the cafe element. And you've said restrict 40 covers, but you said you think that would be minor. So if I've heard you correctly, are you saying you think that accords with policy and is okay on that aspect? So you're, in terms of the agricultural land, you think there's a justification to go against that. In terms of the town centre, a sequential assessment, you said that you think that this would be minor. So just to clarify, are you saying that therefore you think this is okay and therefore accords with policy on that aspect?
I'm happy to put that in my motion, yes.
Yes. So just to be clear, members, that I think the motion would be to grant, subject to suitable terms, conditions, some of which you've mentioned, and informatives, and the justification regarding the agricultural land going against those policies is the basis of employment, economic benefit, and tourism. So the motion is recognising it is actually the application is contrary to policy in one aspect, but you consider there are material considerations as to why it should be granted. Yes.
Yes. Councillor James, are you seconding the motion?
Thanks, convener. Yes, I was, because I was hoping to have jumped in there. I agree with everything that Councillor Waters has said. With regard to the size of the cafe, which Mr. Elliott was just talking about, it says it would, in our recommendations, it said it will have a significant impact on the vitality and viability of Milnathorpe. We don't have any policy on cumulative impacts, so I wouldn't agree with that. And to have something actually on site for the facility that you're providing, you've got 19 golf bays and 40 covers. I think that sits well with me, to be honest. With regard to the land, yes, I think that there are factors which we should take into consideration. As Mr. Montgomery's already said, the land is unviable. It's not profitable, and farmers are being encouraged to diversify in order to keep the rest of their farms open. This is a small use of 9.9 unprofitable hectares, which he can turn into 9.9 very profitable hectares, which will keep the rest of the farm open. So I think there are overriding factors, but everything else I totally agree with Councillor Waters. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have an amendment from Bailey.
Thank you, convener.
Sorry, Councillor Bailey, but apologies, convener, but I was just wanting to ensure, from a SUDS perspective as well, that the outfall from the SUDS is properly covered as well, as per conditions with officers as well, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Continue, Bailey.
Thank you, convener. I wish to move an amendment to the extent that the item will be passed per the recommendations in the paper for the reasons stated in the paper. Therefore, it's an amendment to proceed with rejection of the proposal. My justification being that per the report, I can't see any good reason for deviating from local development plan here, and I can't see any good reason to put this in the middle of effectively in the middle of perfectly good agricultural land. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey. Councillor Harvey, your second.
Yep. Sorry. You've caught me. Sorry, convener. Yeah, second for the similar reasons to Bailey. Sorry for being my.
Thank you. Do members have any comments on the report? No comments. Oh, sorry. Councillor Braun.
Yeah, sorry, convener. I made me a bit slow there.
This is a very difficult one to look at, I think, in this case, because there's a case been put forward from both sides on this matter. I'm not sure. We know obviously reason for refusal number 3 has been removed. I'm not sure there's justification for number 2. But on balance, I think number 1 is the main factor here. We've got it down in front of us as agricultural land class as 3.1, which is what we have to take. It's on the paper in front of us. I'm concerned about the fact that we would be losing this land for usage in food production. I appreciate it's only 40 acres and the yield is reasonably lower than what we'd expect. But if we lose 40 and the next 40 and the next 40, it soon starts to mount up. So that in my opinion, is the main reason here. But I accept that the amendment is to carry with both 1 and 2 reasons. I know that the comment was made, the applicants have made a comment, of course, and Councillor James put it back up about the fact that they might appeal. This is the right of any applicant to appeal, of course, in any case that comes before us. But we cannot make our judgments on the basis they might appeal, they might not. We have to make our decisions based on what is exactly in front of us today. So whilst I appreciate what's been done and I understand the business concept of it, in this case, I'm going to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. As was said by Councillor Braun, this is a very difficult one. And given my questioning, you'll understand where my difficulties lie. I see that there are lots of benefits in this, whether that's local employment, whether it's new sporting opportunities. I don't really see the impact on Milnathort, and I don't think they're taking the majority of that prime agricultural land away from possible future use. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey, do you wish to sum up?
No, thank you.
Councillor Waters, do you wish to sum up?
Just to add something very briefly. This is a cycle past this site quite frequently. I walk past it. It's a popular area there, and policy is policy on the quality of the agricultural field. When Mr. Montgomery said a lot of this field isn't even worked, it's 100% true. There are bare areas, brown muddy areas in that field on a you see on a regular basis. So while policy wise we can't argue against the prime agricultural land, visually I would question it as well. But I've chosen not to go down that route with this. But feeling summing up, it's worthwhile pointing that out. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now hand over to Mr. Elliott to confirm the terms of the motion and the amendment.
Thank you, Convener. In terms of the motion, what I have is motion by Councillor Waters, seconded by Councillor James, to grant subject to suitable terms, conditions and informatives, with the justification being that although contrary to the development plan, there are the employment, economic benefits and the tourism benefits. The amendment by Bailey and Councillor Harvey is to refuse. Just to clarify, Bailey, you refer to refusing per the paper, but ground 3 has dropped out because SEPA are no longer objecting, so it would only be refusal on grounds 1 and 2.
Yes, that's accepted. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. Convener.
Thank you. I'll now hand over to the clerk for the roll call vote.
Thank you, Convener. Members, when I call your name, please let me know if you're voting for the motion to grant or the amendment to refuse. Bailey Ahern.
Motion.
Councillor Allen.
Motion.
Bailey.
Amendment.
Councillor Braun.
Amendment.
Bailey Brock.
Motion.
Councillor Forbes.
Motion.
Councillor Harvey,
Amendment.
Councillor James,
Motion.
Councillor Massey,
Amendment.
Bailey McLaren,
Motion.
Councillor Stewart,
Amendment.
Councillor Waters,
Motion.
and Bailey Williamson.
Amendment.
Thank you. I have 7 votes for the motion and 6 for the amendment, and therefore the motion will carry.
Thank you very much. So the motion is carried, therefore planning permission is granted. Thank you. Okay, move swiftly on to the next item, which is for a mixed-use development comprising of the erection of a poultry processing facility and demolition of existing poultry processing facility for residential, commercial, industrial use, including car parking area, vehicle access, landscaping and associated works at Two Sisters Food Group, George Street, Cooper Angus, Blair Gowrie. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton.
Thank you, Convener. As stated, the next item on the agenda today is for a mixed-use development for the redevelopment of the Two Sisters Food Group site in Cooper Angus. The application is in principle only. Members should be advised that only one public objection was received regarding the proposal, and the application is only before you today as it constitutes a major development. Members should also be aware that we are recommending approval as a minor departure from the local development plan, as it is considered that there are material reasons to justify a departure from the plan, as indicated in the reports before you. Additionally, members should note that should the recommendation be agreed today, that we will be required to notify Scottish ministers due to the objection received from SEPA. I will now take the committee through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Here you can see the location of the site. The site extends to approximately 10 hectares and lies to the southwest of Cooper Angus. The northeastern section of the site contains the existing poultry facility. Next slide, please. We now have an extract from our adopted Local Development Plan 2 showing the site as E32. As seen, the proposal before you today is fully within the settlement boundary. Next slide, please. Here we have the existing site plan. The northeastern section of the site is the existing processing facility, and the southwest is currently in agricultural use. Next slide, please. This aerial shot gives a better indication of the current land use. Here you can also make out the relationship with Cooper Angus better. Next slide, please. This indicative master plan shows the extent of the new facility. The area of the existing facility in the northeastern section of the site will be redeveloped for mixed use, including housing. Next slide, please. This artist's impression shows the potential visual impact of the new building. Members are reminded that this application is in principle only, and the details of these buildings will be subject to future planning applications. Next slide, please. Again, we have an artist's impression showing the potential impacts of the new building, this time viewed from a different location. Next slide, please. Here we have a selection of photographs showing the site in its current form. The road you can see in the top images is the A94 road. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the indicative master plan for reference.
Thank you. We do have deputations on this. What? Mr. Panton, did you refer to the amendments?
If I didn't, I'd remind members that there was an update circulated just regarding the wording of one of the conditions and a few typos that were within the report.
Right, thank you. We do have deputations on this, so I'll hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputation procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Can I call on Mr. Wall, who is acting on behalf of the applicant, and he's going to be accompanied by Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Summers. Mr. Wall, you've got 5 minutes for your deputation, and I'll give you a wee prompt after 4 minutes. So in your own time, if you'd like to start.
Thank you. Thank you, Convener. Good morning, councillors. I'm James Wall. I'm a senior planner with Turley in Scotland, and I'll be making this deputation in favour of the proposals on behalf of the applicant. With me from the project team is Sean McCarthy of Amber Real Estate, the applicant who owns the site. We have Michael Summers of ECS, who's a transport consultant, and James Aldridge, who he was, I think he was trying to join by mobile, but he might not be here today. But he's a drainage consultant. Happy to answer any questions at the end of the deputation. The applicant supports the overall assessment of the application and recommendations already presented to you. It's important to note the efforts and time commitment on the project by all concerned, including officers. It's been a robust process from pre-application discussions through to the proposal that's in front of you today. As you're aware, the existing facility is coming to the end of its life, and it's not fit for modern standards. A failure to secure the future of a new plant in Cooper Angus would mean that alternative locations elsewhere in the UK would have needed to be considered. The current Two Sisters facility is the largest employer for Cooper Angus and the surrounding area, supporting 910 full-time jobs on site and 200 additional agency roles. This includes jobs in a range of professions, including production, engineering, dispatch and hygiene-based roles. As well as preserving existing jobs, approximately 2.6 hectares of land would be available for mixed-use development on the area of the site where the existing poultry processing plant is located. This creates an opportunity for around 70 additional full-time jobs through additional employment floor space. Comprehensive engagement with the community has helped inform the proposals through the application process before reaching this committee. We've enjoyed listening to people's stories about the plant, with often multiple generations of family members having worked there. And indeed, the knowledge and skills of the local community is one of the key reasons that the applicant has chosen to stay in Cooper Angus and invest in a new facility. A common question we asked at the consultation events was, when is this going to happen? Well, the proposal in front of you today is for planning permission in principle, and depending on the outcome of proceedings today and the submission of further AMSC applications, the target is to have the new facility operational within 3 years, with the completion of the redevelopment of the existing site within 3 years thereafter. Up to 49 homes are proposed as part of the redevelopment of the existing site, of which 25% would be affordable. This supports brownfield land regeneration and would make a positive contribution to the council's housing land supply. In terms of transport, the new facility will not result in a material increase in vehicle movements. The proposed level of car parking spaces recognises the current issues with overspill parking onto the surrounding streets, and this was an issue that was flagged up to us during the consultation events. The inclusion of state-of-the-art equipment and odour abatement systems, as well as the siting of the new plant being further away from residential development, would be an improvement on existing standards in terms of odour. The noise impact would be neutral, subject to mitigation, detail which would be provided in the submission of future AMSC applications. In terms of flood risk and drainage, flood mitigation would be provided to ensure the development would not increase the risk of flooding on or off the site and would actually provide a betterment to the existing position. PKC's flooding and structure service have not objected to the proposals, given the mitigation that is proposed. We acknowledge there is an objection. We acknowledge there is an objection from SEPA in principle due to the location of new plans, partly being within a flood risk area. That was under the updated flood criteria in NPF4, and PKC officers not considering the proposals to be essential infrastructure. In our view, the proposal could be classified as essential infrastructure given the nature of development and its strategic role in ensuring national food security, and we submitted a legal opinion on that basis. Notwithstanding, the site is allocated for employment in the LDP, appropriate flood mitigation is being provided, and there are obviously significant social and economic benefits to the development, and therefore we think that the development plan should be read as a whole when determining this application. Finally, regarding construction, once the new facility becomes operational, the existing site will be decommissioned and redeveloped. Construction environmental management plan would be submitted to the council for approval to ensure any disruption is minimised. The applicant and project team are keen to move the project forward. Approving the application for planning mission in principle would represent a significant step forward in securing the future of poultry production. No worries, just about at the end. So thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, gentlemen. I know that you're willing to take questions, and Councillor Braun, you've got a question?
Success. Thanks, Vice Convener. Thank you for your deputation. I know the area. I've driven through it many times, and I think we all recognise the importance of the economic importance of the business. That goes without saying. You touched on the question of odour. I know I've been to Cooper Angus occasionally. There is a smell in the air of dead chicken meat, whatever it might be, and I think on a warmer weather it gets even worse. The new facility, you mentioned that it would reduce some of the odour. Is there going to be a means within inside the business to reduce that odour spreading out into the town? But being a modern facility.
Yeah, I think it's a key point really is, as per the images, that the intention is for the whole of the processing from obviously wagons coming in to wagons going out is all going to be contained within the buildings. So there will be ventilation systems brought up to current standards, and this is the first or the furthest advanced design really in terms of 4 other schemes that we're looking to do in the UK. So we've been to the Netherlands and USA to try and get best practice in terms of odour, noise, as well as the equipment inside. So we see this as the sort of first of the other 4, which will be brought up to state of the art. And as I say, covering off odour, noise are the key points to that.
Just another thing to mention, obviously physically the site is so. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just another thing to mention, like physically the site is obviously further away from sensitive receptors like residential development, so that would obviously help on the existing situation.
Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Thank you for your deputation. If granted planning, you suggested that the thing would be up and running hopefully in about 3 years' time. I take it that's the main factory unit. In Perth and Kinross, we've got some issues with housing stock lacking and requiring more. When do you foresee that the housing would start, and when do you think it would be complete?
Yeah, so just taking a step back really in terms of the operations on site at the moment, then it's virtually a 24-hour operation. So the whole ethos of the design was to design the new factory to be up and operational before we could stop production in the existing. So I think in terms of the 3-year timescale, we were talking about getting that new facility up and running, and all right, it won't be as practical as this, but literally turning the lights off on a Friday and moving everything across to the new facility. So it's that's driving the redevelopment of these existing site. So if we do the 3 years to get the existing one operational, and then we'd start with demolition and clearance and redevelopment with the housing in the following 3 years. So that's our sort of project timescale, really.
Bailey McLaren.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is also sort of around housing for the staff. So you're saying there'll be a further 70 jobs, and there's a sort of timeline here between one site, the larger site opening, and then housing availability. Where are the current workers housed? Are they housed in Perth, around Perth? It's up to them to secure their own accommodation. Just to get an understanding, because we do have a demand for housing needs, and it would just be helpful to have that understanding of the logistics of your staffing housing, because I'm aware that they're probably foreign workers.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture really of in terms of workers and locations. There are quite a number that live locally. Obviously, because of the nature of the work, then and it being 24 hours, then people do come in, travel overnight. But the idea is the same workforce that's there now will remain there. So obviously they're living in accommodation at the moment. So we don't see that changing significantly. What we would say is that we've had early engagement with housing officers at the council in terms of those up to 49 new houses on the site. Then whilst there's a policy requirement for 25% affordable, then we'd certainly be open to looking at a sort of build to rent model, so that whilst the affordable housing provision is secured, then we'd be keen to provide housing for our own workers locally as well. So that's something that we're open to discussions with officers on the next stage, really.
Gentlemen, there appears to be no further questions. Thank you for your time. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this issue. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Councillor Allen, you put an M instead of a Q. I'm assuming you want a question. Well, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for questions. But we'll go for questions. Right. Councillor Stewart, Vice Convener.
I'd like to ask about we know that from the SEPA maps that the area could be prone to flooding, and the gentleman just described that they are aware of that. Would there be any impact into Cooper Angus with water going back eastwards?
Russell, can you answer that one?
Yeah, so the plan application included a flood risk assessment that looked at the baseline, as in what happens now in the current condition, and then what happens once the development's built. And it showed that there was essentially a neutral impact, actually a slight betterment within Cooper Angus. So there is still a flood risk in Cooper Angus. There's no getting away from that. That will still continue. But the building of this development site, because of the storage areas that they've included within the design, will not increase flood risk elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions. I have a question myself. In our report, it states at background and description of proposals that the council is currently in discussion with the applicant and the Scottish government with a view to facilitating the future delivery of the poultry processing facility. I believe that Mr. James is here. Could you give me insight into how the discussions going? Obviously, they're sensitive discussions, but if you give me just an insight into that, thank you.
No problem. Hi. Yes, we have had conversations with Amber Real Estate and with the Scottish Government in relation to how the funding of this operation will be undertaken. The plant itself, we've had information from Two Sisters that the scheme will cost in excess of £100 million for the shell, plus Two Sisters would be looking at spending approximately £65 to £70 million on the internal workings of the operation. Conversations have gone well with Amber Real Estate. We've taken advice from Jones Lang LaSalle about what kind of arrangements we can put in place to facilitate this. Options include a potential landlord-tenant relationship. From the discussions we've had with Amber Real Estate, they're looking at us doing a potential 20-year income strip deal where they have the option to buy out from year 5 onwards. Now, that's obviously a huge risk for the council in terms of underpinning that financially, because we'd obviously have to borrow the money. We are looking at options at the moment as to how we would do that through finance and also through legal, but we're also really looking for a guarantee from the Scottish Government in this respect as well to share the risk. But we do have to note the repercussions of what's involved here in terms of from the agricultural side and all the additional businesses that rely on the Scottish poultry industry. Any other questions? Happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions? I will now ask for a motion. Now I see Councillor Allen. Right, I'm going to take Councillor Stewart as the ward member for his motion.
Thank you, Convener. My motion is to accept this planning application as presented to the PKC officer's report of handling. We can all see from the Perth and Kinross LDP that the E32 is an employment proposal site, and it's been a long-term strategic land use objective. The town of Couperangus has been waiting for some time to have a much-needed, modern, efficient processing facility. The town itself will take recognisance of the car parking being integrated into the new facility, mitigating possible flooding issues, but it will also relieve local parking issues for residents. And in the future, the building of much needed 49 new houses on the old site will be much appreciated. It makes sense to build the new facility next door, continuing to make good use of a willing and able local workforce. The town is a good nodal point, putting it at the centre of national supply and distribution transport routes, noting the enhancement of the Western Corridor with the opening of Destiny Bridge next year. This land use fits in with one of Perth and Kinross's council's own corporate plan priorities, reducing poverty. This multi-million-pound investment will support the continuation of a major employer in East Perthshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun, you want to second?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I think everything's been said by Vice Convener Stewart on this one. It's an important business. It supports a lot of jobs, as we've read in here. It's a major development. It will improve the town, I think. We've discussed the odour, so hopefully that will help in the long term. There's always a concern about flood risk. We have these problems, as Mr. Stewart knows, further up in Blackberry. I often wonder whether these mitigation measures actually work, to be honest. The type of weather we have these days can easily overwhelm these. But having said that, on balance, I think this is an important economic development. It will improve the town, give more work. We've got properties coming in as well, which will help people who need homes. So overall, I'm happy to support this. I say a caution about flooding, but nonetheless, I think it's something worthwhile supporting. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Vice Convener, can I just clarify that you want to grant the report as amended?
Sorry, Convener, that's correct.
Councillor Braun, you're happy with that?
Yep, yes, Convener.
Thank you. Can I ask if there is an amendment? No amendment. Can I ask for comments on the report? Okay, I'll make a comment. This in principle application, although not deemed as of essential infrastructure, is of significant and national importance. The in principle planning permission for the new facility will not only help secure the jobs in Cooper Angus and surrounding area, but also help support poultry production within Scotland and therefore help maintain Scotland's food security. And with the proposed building of industrial units on the site and houses, this will bring extra employment to the area. I fully support this application. Thank you. So, as there is no amendment, the permission is therefore granted as amended. Thank you. We will now take a 5-minute recess. Yeah, okay. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Everyone online? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, we move on to the next application. The next application for a Section 42 application to vary Condition 9, signalised junction of permission on planning application 21-02137 AMM, the James Hutton Institute, Errol Road, Invergowrie. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. As stated, the final major application before you today is a Section 42 application at the James Hutton Institute, Invergowrie. Members are advised that only one public objection was received regarding the proposal, and the application is only before you today as it constitutes an amendment to a major development. I will now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Here we have the location of the site, which is within the James Hutton Institute complex, sited to the west of Invergowrie. The pink star shows the newly constructed link road to the roundabout, which connects Invergowrie to the A90 dual carriageway, and the yellow star shows the junction under question on Riverside Drive as part of this application. Next slide, please. This plan now shows better detail of the existing junction. Members should be advised that this junction is within the Dundee City Council's area and not Perth and Kinross Council's area. Next slide, please. This plan now shows the arrangements that were previously proposed to enhance the junction. The applicant has now demonstrated that this is no longer required for the scale of the development, and our colleagues in Transportation and Development who are here today are accepting of this position. I will now take members through some Google images showing the junction in better detail. This first image shows the existing junction when emerging from Invergowrie. Note that there is already both a left and right-hand turning lane. Next image, please. This next image shows the junction on Riverside Drive when looking back towards Invergowrie. Again, your attention is drawn towards the existing turning lane. Next image, please. This final photograph again shows the junction when looking back towards Invergowrie. You can just make out the Welcome to Perth and Kinross sign to the left of the junction, where the boundary of Perth and Kinross and Dundee City lies. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with this photograph for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Pan. We do have deputations on this. I'll now hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputations procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Can I call on Mr. Cox, who is acting on behalf of the applicant? Mr. Cox, you'll be fully aware you've got 5 minutes, and I'll give you a prompt after 4. So whenever you're comfortable, we'll start the clock.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, hello there. I'm Alistair Cox. I'm the Director of Operations from the James Hutton Institute. Thank you for the opportunity to come. And also I'd just like to thanks as well to the planning team, where we've had very constructive discussions over the past few months. This part of the application is for our TCT deal investment and the kind of the main buildings and such like, and it is very important for us to reach a resolution to this as we get the keys to the building on Friday afternoon, and we're looking to start to then occupy the building quite quickly afterwards. I think what our planning team has done is we've demonstrated actually post-COVID that we actually now, with our flexible working, we actually have fewer vehicles coming on site because we have this kind of flexible working within the institute. Also, the costs of the road and to upgrade the junction are quite significant, and are costs that the Institute cannot afford. We are in the main publicly funded as well. So we're very grateful for the recommendation to support the removal of this condition. I would also just like to point out, since that photo has been taken, there has been new tarring has been put on the road, and all the road markings have now been repainted. So it does look significantly different to what it does now. So that is all I have to say, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. We'll give a moment for the chat function to populate. Members, if you have any questions, please use the chat function. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, last convener. Thank you for your deputation. I can see the cost factor is a major factor for you. But reading through the paperwork we have here, I'm trying to describe for those who don't perhaps know it quite so well. The premise is that people exit and enter the James Hutton Institute via the roundabout on the A90. I think that's the road. Yeah, that's the idea. Which I can see. I'm thinking that people are coming from Dundee on the A90, cross the Swallow roundabout, next exit they're into you. That's fine. People coming from the airport direction of that road from Dundee itself will, I presume, turn left and go in that way, which is the way. My concern is when people are actually leaving. If they've got to leave by the roundabout on the A90, they've got to go, I think, 4 miles up the road to Longforgan. Is that under 2 miles back? Sorry, yeah, so that's right. There's 2 miles there, 2 miles back. Is that good? I just want to comment. Do you think that's realistic that people would do that? Because, you know, you've got to go 2 miles up, 2 miles back. Most would come back to this exit as well. I'm concerned about the idea that there's be less people using it. I think it's a bit of a falsehood on the night journeys back home. I think most people come back to that junction, and it is a busy junction at the best of times. That's what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it is human nature as to how people will move. Obviously, we will be indicating to our employees how they should be travelling. I think as well, we have to note that the Swallow roundabout is undergoing a major upgrade at the moment, and that will also change, I think, significantly the dynamics around this road. But yeah, these are all things that we have kind of factored into, and I think part of it comes down to how we'll be educating our colleagues on kind of the traffic movements and such like. Yep.
Bailey McLaren.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cox. Delighted to hear that there's an upgrade of tarmac on that road surface. My question is staff numbers. You're clearly expanding due to the Tay Cities investment. And the work of the James Hutton is vitally important to the ongoing understanding of climate. But your staff numbers, where do you see an increase, decrease? You said there's flexible working. Could you maybe just expand on that a little bit? Thank you.
Okay, so since we've started this process, because of our funding situation, we've actually had to go through a redundancy process. So we've actually lost a number of staff recently. So this just reinforces kind of the financial aspect of the organisation. What we have is the core people who are going to be delivering the work associated with the funding that we've got through the Tay City deal to deliver the International Barley Hub and the Advanced Plan Go Centre. So we have the core number. We will see an increase, but not an increase to maybe the levels that we were at previously. But we are wanting to kind of grow numbers. But with the modelling that we have done, and we have on the Invergowrie site, we have circa about 220 people at the moment. We will see some growth from that, but not as significant as what was originally perceived, unless we can find further avenues for funding to develop our science.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox, there appears to be no further questions, so thank you for your time. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this paper. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Bailey.
Thank you very much. And another one that might be coming from a little bit of a position of naivety, because I don't usually attend this committee, but wondered if officers could help me with the section 84, paragraph 84 of the report. I'd summarise it by saying that it gives a character. It explains that essentially the cost of doing this thing that we're discussing here is approximately 10 times what it was originally anticipated to be. And that's mentioned within the appraisal section. However, planning reports I've read in the past have not usually considered the financial implication of conditions like this within the appraisal section. And I just wanted to seek a surety from officers that it is a material consideration. The fact that this condition is costing the applicant a lot of money, whether we agree with it or not, is that something that's material as a planning consideration? Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey. No, I think you're correct in saying that the financial situation associated to the applicant is not a material consideration. We're just setting out what they have said. I think there are questions as to how those figures have been come about. We had not costed up what the junction improvements would be. These are figures which have been set by the applicant in terms of their own budgeting, and what they're saying is that the 100,000 is not sufficient in order to do what was initially deemed to be required and is no longer deemed to be required after further review, and they're just setting out what the likely cost from their perspective would be. But I think these are really questions that might be better presented to the applicants rather than to officers. But turning to your question again, no, the financial status of the applicant is not a significant material consideration, no.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. Just really wanted to ask transport colleagues what they thought of this. It is a busy junction at the best of times, a difficult right-hand turn onto the road into Dundee. Are they happy with the safety situation? I know it's under Dundee's jurisdiction, but are our transport colleagues happy with the safety aspects of this?
Lachlan, can you take that one?
Yes, Convener. Thank you for the question there, Councillor Braun. And a further analysis of the works or the further modelling has been undertaken by the applicant. So initially in 2020, modelling work was undertaken to support the in-principle application. We've had various discussions with the applicant through the submission of the application in 2021. That application as well, and then we came about. We've had numerous discussions over the last 2 or 3 years, which is why we've now got the application that's before us. So what they have done is they've gone away and they've undertaken a fresh assessment of the reduced traffic volumes associated with James Hutton Institute. They've also undertaken traffic counts on the surrounding road network as well. And what we've found is that generally there has been a decrease in traffic going around with people working from home, flexible working, and as a result of the the COVID practices that have been implemented and a number of organisations have kept in place. What I mean, Alistair said today from the James Hutton Institute that they have seen a decrease in the number of staffing on site currently, and that was presented through the modelling exercise that they've undertaken. So what we're kind of looking at is we're looking at an increased number of people on site, approximately about 9%. So the applicant has looked at modelling of the junction, and there is capacity within the junction. So generally what we're looking at is a junction would be approaching capacity at 85%. What we're sitting at is 0.78%. So there is capacity, we feel, within the junction as it currently stands at the Main Street 85 junction.
I'd assume that that's 78%, not 0.78%.
Yeah, 78% or 0.78, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I see no further questions. I'll give it a second. Anyone else? No. Can I ask for a motion then? I'll put forward, oh, there we go, Bailey McLaren.
Thank you, convener. Yes, I would just like to forward the paper as per our officer's recommendations. The James Hutton Institute does amazing work in all sectors of food, climate, mapping. You know, it really is a sort of jewel in our crown of Perthshire, albeit on the periphery of Perthshire. And you know, the officers have clearly stated the reasons that they support this, so I am more than happy to forward this for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, you're seconding.
Fully happy to second Bailey McLaren's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask for an amendment, or if there is an amendment? Any comments on the report? Bailey.
Thank you. Just to say that I fully support the approval of this recommendation. I think it's unfortunate that I guess somewhere I got their sums wrong. The junction is in need of improvements for safety concerns, but I don't think that should fall to the James Hutton Institute. I think the only sort of fly in the ointment here is that the assumption that workers or visitors to the James Hutton will leave via the Longforgan junction then double back is somewhat naive, but I think the report covers that. So yeah, happy to support approval of the removal of the condition here. Thank you for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comment? No further comment with no amendment. Therefore, permission is granted to vary condition 9. Thank you. Now move on to local applications, and there's just one local.
Can you bring Councillor Forbes back in?
Oh, good eye, sorry. Well done. Welcome back, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you.
So we now move on to local applications, and as there's only one local application, this is for the erection of a dwelling house and garage, Seathorpe, Cantillo Road, Bridge of Erne. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton.
Thank you, convener. The final application on the agenda and the only local application we have today is for the erection of a dwelling house and garage in Bridge of Erne. The application is before you following the receipt of an objection from Erne Community Council. The site already benefits from a detailed planning permission for the erection of 4 dwelling houses. This application essentially seeks to change the house type on plot 3. I will now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Here we can see the location of the site. The site is located just off of Cantillo Road in Bridge of Erne. The site was previously guarding ground for a property on Cantillo Road known as a small holding. Next slide, please. Here we can see the proposed site plan showing plot 3 in detail. The overall layout of the scheme remains generally consistent with the previous approval. Next slide, please. This plan shows the house that is already consented on plot 3. Construction has already commenced on building this house. Next slide, please. This plan now shows what is currently proposed. The proposal seeks to amend the previously granted house by extending the east gable by 2.5 metres. There are some other minor changes to the design as well, which include the variation of stonework. However, other than that, the house is nearly identical to the previous approval. Next slide, please. This plan shows the proposed garage building, which is unaltered from the previous approval. This garage is shared with the neighbouring plot and has already been constructed. I will now take members through a series of photographs that I took on my site visit last month. This photograph shows plot 3 when viewed from the south. As seen, the plot is nearing completion, largely in accordance with the previous approval. Next image, please. This next image shows the front of plot 3 when viewed from the new access road. You can see here that the shared garage building with the neighbouring plot has now been completed. Next image, please. This photograph shows a completed plot to the immediate north of plot 3. Please note that this plot is now occupied. Next image, please. This penultimate photograph shows the access to the site from Kintillo Road. This access has not yet been fully completed. This area of Kintillo Road is where the small convenience store is located in addition to the bus stops. Next image, please. This final image shows the site when viewed from Todd Place. The red lines denote where a footpath connection to the new development will be obtained from. Condition 4 will require the implementation of this footpath link by the 16th of August 2024. On conducting a site visit yesterday evening, the footpath under question is now at advanced stages of construction and likely to be completed well in advance of the 16th of August. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the proposed plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. You've earned your money today. We have deputations on this, so I'll now hand over to the Vice Convener for questions. No, for questions. For the deputations procedure.
Thank you, Convener. We have Mr. Bruce, Chair of the Erne Community Council. You're objecting to this proposal, and Mr. Bruce is going to be online. Mr. Bruce, could you *6 to connect? Was there? Good morning, Mr. Bruce. Did you *6 your phone to unmute? Mr. Bruce, if you try once more and speak. Mr. Bruce, can you talk to us? Mr. Bruce, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Good morning.
Right, sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Bruce, you have 5 minutes for your deputation. I'll give you a prompt after 4 minutes. So when you're comfortable, you may start.
Okay, thank you very much. The Community Council is not actually against any of the proposal that the developers have. What was contentious was that they had asked for condition 4 to be removed, and this caused the community and the council concerns that the new access proposed was not going to happen. We've since had assurances, and it's been reported to you that the access path is now under completion, which is fine. We were in discussion with the developers about this. The one last remaining aspect of this footpath is a very specific point, in that its design is to include a slope suitable for use by disabled. Now, in the winter, that slope may well be iced, it may well have leaves on it, it may well have snow on it. And what is not clear is who is responsible of servicing this footpath so that it remains open for the community to make use of it. We have not been able to obtain any assurances from the developer or from the council as to what the situation is. And we would like it discussed, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Are you willing to take questions from members?
Yes, I am.
Please wait a moment. Mr. Bruce, there appears to be no questions being put to you, so you're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to now call on Mr. Taylor, architect and agent. Mr. Taylor, you have 5 minutes for your deputation. I'll give you a prompt after 4, and whenever you're ready to start, I'll start the clock.
Good morning. My name's Richard Taylor from Studio East Architects. I'm the agent for the application. I also deliver apologies from the applicant, who has been unable to attend today for their own work commitments. As we've heard, this is an application for a simple variation to a house type. The reasons were to meet the needs of a purchaser. I think the case officer's report is quite clear in its support for the application, and I'm content that that assessment is correct, and we're pleased with the recommendation. But just to clarify, this is an application for a variation to a house type. The subject of this path is not to do with this application, but I'd like to use this as an opportunity to just explain the history behind the path and its delivery. The original approval for the site had a condition to deliver the path, and it should be opened prior to occupation of the first dwelling house. That was unable to be achieved due to the phasing and also health and safety considerations of a working construction site. However, it was also resisted by the purchasers of properties on the site, adjacent residents, and also the adjacent housing association. And off the back of that feedback to the developer, he then submitted the application to remove that condition. Now that application was not supported, and rather than appeal that, the applicant took on the responsibility and said, "That's absolutely fine, I will deliver this path," which, as has been evidenced, is happening. And in fact, it's nearing completion. So the intention is that this path will be completed. It won't be able to be open to the public because this is a working construction site, but nevertheless, the intention of its delivery is now demonstrated. So it's important to note that this application is for a variation to the house type, and any issues regarding the path are no different than what's expected and already approved. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We'll give it a moment for the chat function to be populated. Councillor Braun.
Well, thanks, Baskin. Thanks for your deputation. The question of who maintains the slope of the curb, that seems to be the question that everybody wants to know. So is that something that the developer will maintain in icy conditions, or is that not the case?
I've only had brief conversations with the developer on this matter. It's not something that's fully within my remit to know about or comment on, but my understanding is that the original application, when the original application was approved, the expectation was that this would be an adopted route through. However, it's now my understanding that the council's intention is not to adopt this, so therefore some kind of suitable factoring involving the local residents and subsequent shared ownership of that path will be implemented.
Bailey McLaren.
Thank you. My question may seem a wee bit, parochial, but I'm concerned. The main part of the house has been constructed. Will the roof colour match when this, if this is approved today, this extension to the building? Will we, visually, we won't see a discoloration of roof tiles with the 2 phases of construction?
As the house is currently under construction and subsequently moving on to the extension being completed, they'll be happening within a matter of weeks of each other. So it will be one continuous roof. It will look coherent and read as one house built at the same time.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, there appears to be no further questions, so you're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. Just for my own understanding, it would appear that this is an application in retrospect as the house has already been constructed. What would happen if we were to refuse this application?
Thank you, Councillor Allen. The application is not in retrospect. As you saw from the previous approval on the site, the rest of the house is almost identical. The plan that's in front of you there, and that kind of dotted line on the roof plan there, they're essentially adding a bit on to the already consented house. So if the committee doesn't agree this today, they simply can't build that area within the dotted line, but they could still build the rest of it because that's consistent to the previous approval on the site. So just to confirm, it's not in retrospect, it's really just an extension to what they've already built.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Commissioner. So following on from my first question, do we have any comment on who's going to maintain the drop curb in bad weather conditions?
Yes, I can answer that for you, Councillor Braun, and maybe Mr McLean can come in on the back of me. But like was alluded to in the deputations, when the original scheme came forward, it was the intention that the council were going to adopt this. That is no longer the case. In terms of maintenance and winter conditions and the likes, as it was alluded to, is looking like it'll be a suitable factor that's in place. As a council, that's acceptable to us and we have no issues with that. So I don't know if Mr McLean wants to expand any further or if he's happy enough with that.
I've not got anything further to add at this time, Sean.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Can I ask for a motion? I'll put forward a motion to grant permission. Can I have a seconder? Seconder is you're okay with Bailey Williamson.
Yeah, happy to second, Convener.
Thank you. Is there an amendment? Councillor James, you put in an M. Is it for amendment or?
No, that was from motion, Convener.
Okay.
Just I wasn't as quick as everybody else.
No problem. I've got an advantage. I don't have to write it. Okay, there's no amendment. Do you have any comments on the report? No comments. Nope. Therefore, planning permission is therefore granted. Thank you. We have no PANs this week, or this month, I should say. So that is us for today. So thank you to everyone involved today. Thank you.